I'd been babysitting for years. From sticky toddlers with too much energy to awkward preteens glued to their phones, I'd seen it all, or so I thought. But nothing could have prepared me for the night I babysat for the Aldridge family. I found the job through an online post. The ad was short and vague. Babysitter needed, one night only, payment $300. The absurdly high pay raised some red flags, but my bank account didn't leave room for skepticism. A single night's work could cover rent for the month, and how bad could babysitting be? I called the number listed, and a man picked up on the first ring. "You're available?" "Perfect," he said hurriedly. His voice was calm but almost rushed, like he didn't have time for small talk. He confirmed the date and time, and said nothing more, other than giving me their address. The strange house. When I arrived that evening, I couldn't shake the unease that washed over me. The house was isolated, surrounded by tall trees and thick fog, with no neighbors in sight. It looked like something from a forgotten ghost story. Weathered wood, peeling paint, and a solitary light above the porch. I knocked, and the door creaked open almost immediately. A man and a woman stood inside, their expressions tight but polite. "You must be Megan," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Mr. Aldridge, and this is my wife." Mrs. Aldridge nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked nervous, constantly glancing toward the stairs. They gave me a quick tour of the house. The main floor was modest, just a cozy living room, a clean but outdated kitchen, and a narrow staircase that led to the bedrooms. Their 6-year-old daughter, Emily, was already in bed upstairs. The Aldridges mentioned she rarely woke during the night, so my job would mostly involve staying awake and making sure the house stayed quiet. Easy money, right? Before they left, Mr. Aldridge pulled me aside, his voice dropping to a serious tone. "There's one thing you need to know," he said. "Under no circumstances should you open the door. If anyone comes to the house, no matter who they say they are, do not let them in." I blinked, unsure if he was joking, but his expression stayed grim. "Not even for you?" I asked, half laughing. His jaw tightened. "Especially for us." The couple left before I could ask anything else, driving off in a hurry and leaving me standing in their eerie, dimly lit house. Uneasy stillness. The first hour passed without incident. I made myself comfortable on the couch and tried to distract myself with some TV. The old boxy set only picked up static and a few local channels, so I gave up and scrolled through my phone instead. Around 9 p.m., the silence started to get to me. The house had this oppressive stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of the wood or the faint hum of the refrigerator. To shake off the nerves, I went to check on Emily. She was fast asleep, her tiny frame curled up under a floral quilt. Her room was the only space in the house that felt warm, almost untouched by the strangeness. The first knock. At around 10:15, I heard it. A soft, deliberate knock on the front door. My heart skipped a beat. I froze, phone in hand, straining to listen. It came again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. My mind raced. Who could be out here in the middle of nowhere? I tiptoed to the door and peeked through the peephole. Nothing. No one was there. The Aldridge's warning echoed in my mind. "Do not let anyone in." I decided to ignore it, backing away from the door. But the knocking came again, louder this time. "Hello?" a man's voice called out. "I'm sorry to bother you, but my car broke down. Could you help me?" The voice sounded strained, almost pitiful, but something was off. It wasn't the voice itself, it was too calm, too rehearsed, like an actor reading a script. I didn't respond. The scratches. The knocking eventually stopped, but the unease lingered. I returned to the living room, trying to convince myself it was just a lost traveler. Then around 11:30 I heard another noise, this time at the window. The sound was faint, like nails scratching against the glass. I whipped around, shining my flashlight at the kitchen window, but no one was there. When I approached, my stomach churned. Long, deep scratches ran across the outside of the glass. They hadn't been there before. Emily's warning. A little past midnight, I heard quiet shuffling from upstairs. I rushed to Emily's room, my pulse racing, fearing someone, or something, had gotten inside. She was sitting up in bed, clutching a stuffed animal to her chest. "Emily, what's wrong?" I whispered. Her wide, tearful eyes locked on mine. "He's at the window," she said. I spun around, staring at the window across the room. Nothing. just the dark outline of trees in the fog. "Sweetie, who's at the window?" "The man," she whispered. "The man who knocks." A cold wave of dread washed over me. "Your parents told you about him?" I asked softly. She nodded. "They said he's hungry." The voice. At 1 a.m. the knocking returned, this time from the back door. It was louder, more aggressive. "Please let me in," a man's voice called. "I'm hurt." I froze. It was the same voice from earlier, but this time it sounded angry, desperate. "Sorry, I can't help you," I shouted through the door. The voice changed, flat, emotionless. "I know you're alone," it said. The door shook violently, rattling as though something slammed into it. Then, just as suddenly, the noise stopped. The final hour. By 3 a.m. I was exhausted, counting the minutes until sunrise. I checked on Emily every 15 minutes, reassuring her that everything was fine, though I barely believed it myself. At 4:30 I heard faint whispers coming from the living room. My blood ran cold. "Don't listen," Emily had said. I pressed my hands over my ears and ran upstairs to wait out the final hour beside Emily. The Aldridges' return. At exactly 6 a.m. headlights lit up the driveway and the Aldridges hurried inside. "You did well," Mr. Aldridge said, handing me the money without a word. Mrs. Aldridge walked me to the car, her face tight with unease. "Thank you for staying," she said. I nodded but couldn't shake the feeling that the worst wasn't over. "You'll never come back here, will you?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer, but she already knew.